Clay, I'm going to ask you something that sounds absurd, but I wonder if there's any merit to this. I wondered if this should be an opener, or if I should actually expand on this in the main section. Is this episode of Star Trek an allegory for when a guy goes camping with a bunch of his buddies and he can't find the time to rub one out, that his fantasy just overwhelms him to the point where he starts to see women in the forest. He's desperately trying to find this woman. He feels relieved when she turns into the slug that he's been looking at instead at the very end, and then he walks off, and that's the end of the end of it. It's not a metaphor for built-up sexuality, sexual frustration.
That is an interesting read, I would say.
Well, it's
much more interesting than Reed himself.
Hey-o. He didn't even. You know, if this had turned into Reed murders an animal and sort of gets off on it, I was also willing to go there for some kind of sexual metaphor. But
I think, is everything okay at home?
I think so. I'm not sneaking off to go hunting. That's what I'm saying. Archer seems a little bit pent up. He's out there.
Well, I think what you're getting at, Wes, is even when you're in a committed relationship, every now and then you need to sneak off and go hunting. You know
exactly. You need to spend time with imaginary people you created when you were 5 years old and think about what they're up to at this point and how they'd look if they were with you in the woods in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Let's take a break. We'll play a quote from the episode, and then we'll come back and discuss Rogue Planet.
They know damn well what they're doing.
I find this as distasteful as you do, Captain. I'm just not sure how we can stop them.
They're well armed, and they know the terrain. I wouldn't want to try and take their weapons from them.
We have no right to in any case.
What right do they have to come to this planet and shoot the locals?
Hunting wild boar is one thing, but they're killing a sentient species.
Even if we stop them, their people will continue to come here and hunt. They've done it for hundreds of years.
Unless we find a more permanent solution.
All right, so Rogue Planet is the 18th episode of the first season of Star Trek Enterprise. It aired on March 20th, 2002. Teleplay goes to Chris Black. Story credit goes to Rick Berman, Brandon Braga, and Chris Black. And it was directed by old Star Trek standby Alan Croker. In this episode, Archer has visions of a mysterious humanoid woman on a rogue planet where it's eternally nighttime. Which is quite a setup. You know, this
Goth
is
Planet.
Goth Planet. I don't know. Do you want to start? I went into my masturbation theory about what this episode is about, and I don't know if I can really top that, or if it arrived too soon. Do you want to start off with what you thought about this Rogue Planet episode?
I actually liked this episode. It was. I don't know if I liked it because there was no superfluous B plot, or if they managed to not objectify T'Pol in any real way, even though when they showed that woman in the forest, I was like, oh my God, please don't let this to be some weird dream thing with T'Pol in a skimpy nightie.
Or one of those scenes where the woman turns around and it's T'Pol's face all of a sudden, and Archer's like,
right.
oh.
Right. Yeah. They didn't do that.
T'Pol actually has the best line here, where she's like, I don't think if this was a scantily clad dude, you'd be out there looking for him at this point, which is maybe my favorite part of the episode.
I actually thought this was going to be a Reed episode, in a way that I was kind of excited isn't the right word, but I feel like I learned
aroused.
More about, yeah. I feel like I learned more about Reed in that 5-minute back and forth where he talks about being an Eagle Scout.
Sure.
And then
he's already got the merit badge.
Right. And then he offers to go hunting with the guys. I thought, oh, okay. I mean, that's interesting. I wouldn't have pegged him to do that, and they're not talking about it as much as just showing it. I thought it was going to be more of like a Reed is the person addressing the issues with the hunters kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Didn't turn out to be that at all, but I thought it was pretty good. It is a very what I liked about it, I think, is that it was a allegory episode that didn't feel like it felt like they were writing the allegory to the experiences of the world they've created, and not necessarily just this is why you shouldn't hunt story.
Mm-hmm.
And also the solution wasn't to bloviate and monologue at this hunting team full of 80s movie gym teachers.
Yeah, with laser gun equipment,
right?
Laser tag equipment.
The answer wasn't to get in their face and explain to them why hunting was bad or whatever. They found a solution that was fairly prime directive-y, if you really want to get down to it, where they didn't stop these people from coming down to hunt, and they didn't straight up give the slug people guns, but they just at least leveled the playing field to the point where it wasn't going to be they added an Arnold Schwarzenegger to this Predator situation.
But honestly, how long have they even the playing field, right? This is like an arms race.
Oh, sure.
Like that's, I find that actually kind of fascinating, in that the episode plays it off like it's a big win at the end, and Archer has kind of cleared the table and like even the stakes and everything. But I don't know how long he's actually done. All those guys have to do is upgrade their sensor with the latest. They get to the next town that they get in their RPG. They need to go to the blacksmith and upgrade their weapon, and they'll be okay at the next level.
I even thought when they at that sequence at the end where they kind of got cornered by the slug that turned into the tree, I thought they had already figured it out, where they're like, well, let's just shoot everything and see what happens.
It's very much the Jesse Ventura in Predator, when he's like, where is it? He's just got the minigun, just hit everything.
Everybody just shoot into the wilderness and hope you hit something.
Yeah. I like everything aesthetic about this episode. I like that it's kind of a fairy tale in some ways. Sure. Like this, a very strange planet. Like I love even down to the shots of the Enterprise over this rogue planet, which is all dark, and you can only see the silhouette of it, is cool. Like that felt really unique. That's something they've never done. I like the setting. I don't give a fuck about the science, about how does life support on this planet. It's like that's irrelevant to me. It's just it's kind of a neat place to be.
I did like the excuse where someone's like, shouldn't they all freeze? Shouldn't everything freeze to death? And like, well, it's really warm inside.
They've got their hands over the open fire of the volcanoes, and they're just kind of warming them up in the fireplace.
No speak of atmosphere or anything else that is life giving, but it's really warm at the core. So, just
like us.
Yes.
I think that, like, I don't mind the hunting allegory. I think the allegory is actually pretty bad. I don't think that it's. I'm not as positive on it as you are. I think the biggest problem here, and that usually goes to our main criticism, which is I'm surprised that you kind of like it, is that this is an episode where the entire construct is built on the idea that the episode has to be a mystery, and we're going to write it like a mystery, even though there's no mystery in this whatsoever. So the big problem here is that the hunters, when they go down and Archer sees this woman and he tells them about it, the hunters at that point don't reveal that they know what's going on for no reason. And you could get around that by you go, okay, the hunters think that if they tell Archer what they're doing, he's going to disapprove and tell them that they can't do it. So they kind of keep it secret, and that this is like a secret thing. Mm-hmm. And then when 10 minutes are left in the episode, Archer's like, so you guys just hunt pigs out here? You go, no, we hunt sentient shapeshifters. Like we're out here hunting people. What did you think we were doing? And then at that point you go, well, the episode was never a mystery. It was only a mystery because these characters weren't revealing what they were doing for no good reason other than the plot demands that Archer be somewhat in the dark, literally in this case, about what's going on. And I think that's kind of the fundamental problem with it, is that the plot of the story doesn't support the way that they want to tell the story. And so you end up with neither a good allegory because they don't have a chance to talk about what's going on, and you don't have a good mystery because the mystery is very artificial.
Oh yeah, no, I think they wasted way too much time in this episode. They don't get to the meat of what's going on until like the last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
They don't even they can't, because they are keeping what's going on as a mystery. They can't talk about the problem that they have until they find out what's going on, which doesn't happen until the last 10 minutes. So they have a very kind of quick chat about it back on the Enterprise or whatever.
Even with the hunters before that, where Archer just, they get the information from the hunters, and the hunters just explain everything to them very casually, very much like they're just like, yeah, we've known this forever, and go deal with it. And then Archer goes back on the ship and has that bizarre revelation that the woman is a woman from his past, that he tells that to Trip. I don't know, like I like everything about the setup of this. I just think that the writing, this is such a perfect example of an Enterprise episode to this point. I feel like the bad Enterprise episodes, because I think this episode is kind of bad, but it's dressed up in a way that it fits perfectly in what we've been saying before. It's like it feels competent while you're watching it. Right. And then when it's done, you're like, well, why? Why was that the case of anything? Yeah. Yeah,
they seem to be the mystery plot seems to be a big crutch for this show, because it is stuff that they're holding back that actually would be a lot more interesting and wouldn't feel as plotting if they put it up front, because then you can actually deal with the situation and get interesting conversations and interesting actions out of the fact that they know what they're dealing with and they know what the conflict is, as opposed to just doing another episode where they're looking off and something moves in the darkness, which they seem to do a lot.
Yeah, they do. They do
a lot of like things sneaking around the edges of visibility in this show.
Yeah, no one's got their contacts in on any of these missions. They're just kind of squinting at stuff in the background and taking it on. Yeah, no, I mean, to clarify, I think what you're saying is just that the episode would have been better as a more out-and-out hunting allegory, which is like, what's the ethics of the Enterprise actually interfering here? And I think that's more interesting. And what's surprising to me is they get around it through a meeting where even T'Pol is like, I'm for leaving people alone, but even this crosses the line for T'Pol. Like, she's like, we should not be hunting people. Yeah. That was the surprising thing to me. It's just like the hunting thing gets pushed aside for some bizarre psychological thing, which this is the same. I'm always going to go back to the pineapple thing. What this reveals about Archer is almost more interesting than what the episode wants to talk about, which is like, why is this woman in Archer's head all the time? Like, why is this the dominant thing that these aliens are going to pick up on, and where does that come from? What does that mean for Archer and everything like that?
Well, it's just something from it's not in his head all the time. He goes out of the way to say that it was something he hadn't thought about since he was like 5.
Sure. But why did they mention why these aliens seize on that?
No.
Why did the aliens even disguise themselves? Why don't they just tell Archer, hey, these guys are hunting us. Can you stop us? You seem like a good guy.
Well, it's difficult to take what a giant slug monster tells you and tell you.
They'll just seem more trustworthy.
Yeah. But I think the way to go might have been if they told you up front that that they were hunting these things that have telepathic abilities and can make you see things and whatnot. But they keep the information that they keep close to their chest is the fact that they are sentient. So you have the hunters explain what's going on, but the hunters treating these things as though they're just animals who have this defense mechanism where they can make you see shit. Yeah. And that there's not a sentience built into it. So then you can deal with the hunting element, and then what kicks it into high gear in the second half is when you find out that no, these aren't just pigs that have this weird mental blast defense system when they get scared or whatever. These are actually sentient creatures that are being hunted by humanoids.
Yeah.
That way you can have a conversation about everything. You can still do the weird I'm seeing a woman shit if you want. Mm-hmm. It's just you have a better grasp on exactly what's going on. Because up until, the stuff with the woman is really the only interesting, is a stretch, I think, is the only action of the episode for the most part, other than
chatting with the hunters.
Chatting with the hunters kind of casually and then sort of just wandering through the woods.
Yeah.
And even when that one guy gets hurt and they bring him back to the Enterprise for Phlox to look at him, I'm not really sure what we're supposed to learn from what Phlox tells Trip about the cells changing. Just like I get it. Yeah. I get it that they're shape changers, but it's not any sort of like, it's not information that really adds anything at the moment. You know what I mean? I think the way that they play that scene feels like you're supposed to come away from that scene thinking, oh, what the hunters have been telling us is not entirely true. And I don't know how this thing that bit this dude is a shape changer.
Yeah.
Invalidates anything the hunters have set up to that point.
Right.
So yeah. I think I like the idea, and I didn't hate it. I found it I don't know. I found it kind of I didn't find it unenjoyable to watch. Like it wasn't any sort of revelation or anything, but I thought I liked the rogue planet idea.
Yeah.
And I liked the idea of what these hunters were doing, and I liked the situation that that it put Archer in eventually. But yeah, I think that the time it takes to get there is just way too much, and they focus on the wrong things, unfortunately.
Yeah. I guess I have some just fundamental issues with the way things break out here. Like it feels a lot like all of our past criticisms of Enterprise, where it's like there's a good few ideas stuck in here somewhere that I feel like you could actually have written the episode about and had it gone somewhere. Like, I feel there's a story here about Archer is telling people an outrageous thing. You know what I mean? Like Archer seems insane when he's talking about these things. And everyone's point is like, you're 50 million light years from Earth. What are the odds that there's a woman here in her negligee and that she wants to talk to you? And, that's a weird line from the hunters there, because that hunter knows exactly what's going on and he's clearly not hiding it. So why doesn't he say, that is such an outrageous sentiment. He should go, the only explanation is it's one of these things. So therefore tell me where it is.
There's no, you don't ever get the sense that the hunters are hiding that information.
No, because they reveal it casually. They're eating beans. Right. They're eating like tins of beans and being like, yeah, there's shapeshifters.
Yeah, you don't ever get the sense that they are hiding it because they know what they're doing is wrong or something like that. It's just they just neglect to bring it up.
Yeah.
in the one instance where it's clearly what's happening.
Right. It's fine before that. You can kind of get away with, well, they're just omitting information because they don't feel that they need to tell the Enterprise about that, which is fine. But that's a situation where the weirdness is only one thing that it can possibly be. So they should talk about it. But Archer's, the rest of the crew, you could almost build an episode about like the rest of the crew having their own scene where they're like, is Archer like lost his goddamn mind? Like, what the hell is he talking about? Do we need to do something about this? The problem is it's so low stakes that they don't even need to relieve Archer, because he's not, his belief is not causing any kind of turmoil on it.
Right. I think that's a different episode. That's essentially the other episode where they go to a planet and they go crazy.
Right. Well, if Archer, imagine if Archer had seen them and you focus on Archer being considered crazy by the crew, Archer's determination to stop the hunters becomes a very Archer story where he's pushing back against the Enterprise crew who are like, the Prime Directive or whatever we're going to call it at this point doesn't allow us to interfere with what these guys are doing. But because Archer's the only person seeing these creatures and actually talking to them, he's the only one who thinks that he needs to do something about it. But there's no conflict between anybody, because they just go, oh, Jonathan, you're just fantasizing about things while you're falling asleep. Like that's all it is. And then he goes, yeah, maybe that's the case. And so it's just a very, to keep referencing the past episodes, it's a very low energy thing, like breaking the ice. And I was reading, this is just information you can do what you want with it, but I was reading about the backstory of this series. Apparently the writers that Braga and Berman hired at first, I didn't realize this, but remember the Jacques Matons? I've mentioned their names as writers a couple times. They wrote some of the low-key episodes that we like. They wrote Breaking the Ice and Dear Doctor and things like that. Yeah. They actually became producers on Mad Men, and after they leave this series. He has a bunch of other writers at this point who are writing on the show. One of them created The Closer, and a few others have gone on to like other non-sci-fi dramas that they've gotten more famous for doing. They start getting fired and leaving the show around this point. And they're getting replaced by people like Chris Black, who's not a bad writer, but they start, Berman and Braga start hiring genre writers, sci-fi experienced writers. And so what you're seeing is that the early episodes, which had that really low energy that we were talking about, that it almost doesn't feel like a Star Trek episode, is those writers who were apparently unable to write sci-fi, and Braga had to do a lot of rewrites on their early episodes because there was no science fiction part to anything.
Sure.
But we really are responding to the non-science fiction stuff. But now it feels like with these writers leaving and they're having to focus more on sci-fi stuff, it feels rote at this point. Like it's losing the interesting aspect that was happening earlier with the storytelling, and you're ending up with things like Rogue Planet, which is, it feels like a staff under pressure to write something, just put a sci-fi angle on this and we'll see if it's good enough. And I think that they're competent enough to get it done, but at the same time, this feels like generic Star Trek, and not in a good way, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think if that is the case, which is pretty interesting, actually, I didn't know that was going on. They've been interviewed. Braga and Berman said that their interest at starting out was to write a human drama Star Trek series, which is why they went with people who weren't familiar with sci-fi tropes. Didn't work out, I guess, but yeah, it's too bad that they fired them, because I feel like you probably could have molded that crew into to get what you want. I mean, it's kind of an interesting. Maybe that happens a lot. I don't know, but I feel like with enough time, you probably could have.
Especially on a Star Trek show, you got 4 seasons to get going. You got to give people their at bats. People
don't start watching till halfway through season 3 anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I would have been surprised. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think this episode is an interesting kind of crossroads for that disconnect, because I think the actual concept that they're working with is interesting, but they put way too many what's the word, artificial hooks to try and get you into what is actually a pretty compelling discussion between these points of views and this planet and everything. And that's something that I feel like you can spot a mile away, and it's stuff that bothers me when reading or watching anything, because you can feel it's like I always have a problem in most things, horror movies especially, but essentially across the board, if there's a cop or investigator subplot, because it's almost always bad.
Yeah, like on Brightburn, our latest Patreon movie.
Yeah, and it almost never adds anything to the plot other than just kind of like giving you exposition and drawing things out, and ultimately the cops don't really play a huge part.
Yeah,
if you took it out, it wouldn't really change anything that happens.
No, they do the Kaiser Sose moment is nice because it happens at the end and it's a twist, but they're usually the second act reveal where they figure it out for themselves is the cop figuring out 2 and 2. He puts the pictures together or whatever and looks at it and goes like, oh, it's the same person. And then you go from there.
Yeah, and ultimately, most of the time, or a lot of the time, those subplots end with the cop just sort of showing up to witness whatever happens.
Yeah, and maybe getting killed 50% of the time.
Maybe getting killed. Yeah. My favorite example, I guess it's not my favorite example, but it's the one that always sticks out to me is the Michael Mann movie Collateral. Mark Ruffalo plays a cop in Collateral who is trying to track down the source of these murders that are happening in LA, which ends up being Tom Cruise driving around with Jamie Foxx. And you spend a lot of time with him putting the pieces together, trying to track down Tom Cruise. And then he ultimately manages to get Jamie Foxx, and he's like, I'm a cop. I'm here to help you. And as soon as he says that, Tom Cruise kicks open a door, shoots him, and kills him. And that's it. He's just done. And you never see him again, or you never see the cops again. And you end up, and I feel like another thing in the same category is this artificial mystery where you're really trying to stretch what people are interested in your episode or in your story by adding a mystery and hoping people care about it.
Right.
Unless mysteries only work when people care about what the answer is.
Yep.
And this is an example of they're not changing anything as it goes along. He's not learning anything really as each time the thing moves forward. You eventually find out what it is, and yeah, you're like, well, why didn't you just tell us that at the beginning of the story? It would have changed. It would have made everything a lot more easier to deal with. But it's artificial mysteries always bug the hell out of me, because especially ones like this where it's we're going to have 3 scenes that are essentially all the same, where your character sees some sort of vision, and then the next scene he sees the vision again, and then the third scene he sees the vision again, but this time he figures out, it feels very much like we don't have enough stuff to fill out the story that we're telling, so we need to hook people by creating some sort of mystery, because who doesn't love a mystery?
It's funny. It was
the answer's me. I hate them. That's
not to distract you, but I wonder if I can coin this: the multiple appearances, right? Where he sees the woman, she doesn't say anything. He sees the woman, she says a little bit more, and this says a little bit more. I guess you could call this the police method of writing a chorus to a song, which is to have a sentence, but you say the first couple words, then the second. So don't stand so close to me. Like, so you just add a little bit more. You had a little bit more information, a little bit more information each time.
I like that a lot. That's really good. That's a really good way to put it. Yeah.
That's kind of what this is, and it's extremely.
Because ultimately, from the first line, you kind of know what the sentiment is. Right. So by the time you get to the
you've been singing about Lolita for a couple of minutes.
Don't stand so close to me. Of course, that's the only feasible end to that sentence. Why didn't he just say that in the beginning?
Yeah. And like you're saying, the fact that it's a mystery destroys the Star Trek-y value of this, where it's a debate about hunting, because you don't have time, because you don't know what you're doing. Archer doesn't seem to care about killing pigs. He has one line. He's like, yeah, we outgrew hunting 100 years ago or something. It's kind of novel that you idiots are out here hunting things.
Right.
And I feel there's room for that. And even, to get super stupid about it, I was under the impression that their eating on the ship is done by a chef, and they're actually eating real food, right? Because they don't have replicators at this point. So are they eating animals, and they actually have a problem with people killing animals? Because then it all just seems, it's the episode itself doesn't have a stance on hunting, and I don't think Star Trek at this point has a stance on hunting.
Hunting went out of fashion 100 years ago on Earth. But the food industry complex,
the industrial torture of animals, has never been in better shape.
Yeah,
yeah. Have you ever gone hunting?
I have not. I don't know. It's just not something that I think would appeal to me. I have a hard enough time killing mice in my house. Mm-hmm. I don't think I would hold up very well in a situation where I had to actively shoot an animal. Yeah.
No, we buy the no-kill traps, so I can just strangle the mouse myself after I've
Yeah.
No,
man, I saw this. So we had a couple mice in the house, and I was trying to get rid of them to no avail. And I looked up this, the most effective trap, and it's this homemade thing where you take a bucket and you essentially put a piece of wood, like a dowel, through the bucket, and then put the dowel through a Coke can. Yeah. And then put peanut butter on the Coke can. So then the mouse walks out, and you fill the bucket with water. That's an important part I forgot. Mouse walks out onto the Coke can, and then the Coke can just spins because it's loose.
Oh, it's loosely on the dowel.
Yeah, and it drops the mouse into the water, and then the mouse drowns. And I saw a video of the person setting this up and it working, and then they just show like the aftermath, and you've got this bucket full of dead mice with their little stupid ears like splayed out like Mickey Mouse floating dead in this bucket. I was like, I can't deal with this.
I think I've seen that channel. There's a channel where this guy makes variations on mousetrap, like homemade mousetrap things, and he must have a huge mouse problem that needs something more than what's going on.
The bucket, God, excuse me.
Just filled with dead mice. He leaves it up for overnight. And it's just,
There was at least 10 dead mice in there. And it's like, if you're doing this because you know it works, and this is like an example, then you must have a massive mouse problem.
So much mice that eventually he has to remove the trap when the fallen comrades are used as a ladder for the other mice to get out, basically, and like escape out.
Yeah, no, I'm too much of a bleeding heart to do that. Like I do give them a choice. We have a no-kill trap and we have a kill trap, and it's up to them which one they choose. I let God sort them out, as the shirts say.
I've never gone hunting either. I mean, fishing, but fish don't seem to be considered animals.
I used to go fishing, and I never had a problem with it, but I can't even do that anymore. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's not my thing. Yeah,
I don't know if I'd like to go hunting. I have a Well, like, all I was thinking with the hunters here is that the episode is so disinterested in the hunting that it doesn't even portray the hunters as unethical hunters because they eat the food that they're hunting. Right. You know, it's not like they're just like predator aliens.
I actually kind of find that interesting, though, because then it becomes the question. They're not just villains. You know, right. There is a gray moral ground here where you can look at them and go, well, to be fair, they're hunting, but they are eating what they're killing. It's not like they are just doing
trophy hunting.
Sport.
Yeah.
But they don't. But then when they get into this other thing, not only is it a sentient creature, they don't explicitly to say that they eat those. Mm-hmm. So those are essentially just being done for sport. So then, you know, so I like that there's a gray zone and it's not just big bad hunters out to murder and
torture rabbits. Yeah. No, I agree. And because I think that the ethics of hunting are complicated enough where you could have a good Star Trek episode.
Sure. Oh, absolutely. I'm actually kind of surprised they've never touched on that before in Star Trek.
Yeah. I mean, you might not. There's a DS9 episode in the first season where an alien comes through the wormhole and befriends O'Brien, and he turns out to be a prey for this other hunter group that they sort of let loose, and then they have to track him down.
Yeah.
And so O'Brien helps that prey get away by the end of the episode. He realizes that, you know, the prey has grown up and his greatest honor is to provide a good hunt for these other aliens. So O'Brien doesn't want him to die, but he just lets him go at the end of the episode.
Sure,
that's it. So that you can do stuff like that, and that's fairly similar in idea here, kind of like it's a Archer evening the odds for an unfair advantage in terms of this, although the hunters seem like such nincompoops and bad at hunting in the first place that you wonder how effective they really are when that's their thing.
That is funny because they do show them eating what they're killing, but they also do kind of portray them as some like weekend warrior types.
Yeah.
That's what I said, because they all feel like, I don't know if it's they're all the same kind of guy.
Yeah.
And they
very
much
human too. Very human looking. Yeah.
I actually when they first showed them for a second, I thought they were Bajorans because of the noses. I thought it was like some sort of proto Bajoran thing. But they are all very much like that central casting gym teacher type.
Yeah.
Where they're kind of like a guy in his like 40s or early 50s who used to be in shape but is a little bit thick now.
Yeah. A lot of backslapping, saying "Good job, Johnny," and stuff like that. Yeah,
exactly. They all have that same sort of garage door hair, receding hairline. And this one guy, the lead guy, sounds just like Nick Nolte.
Yes, he does. Yeah,
and I couldn't every line he was talking about. I couldn't help but think of Nick Nolte in Tropic Thunder. when he's talking about all the shit that he had to go through when they took my hands.
Yeah, I
don't know what it's called. I just know the sound it makes when it kills.
Let's go to final thoughts about this one, and we'll read some patron thoughts and all that stuff, because we sound like I'll be interested once we get to final thoughts where you think that this one stands. So don't tell me yet, but we'll go through patron thoughts and then we'll take it. So let's play a quote from the episode. We'll come back, read some patron thoughts, and give our final thoughts about Rogue Planet.
There are no psychotropic compounds here. I wasn't hallucinating, and I wasn't dreaming.
So the only logical conclusion is that she is a real human woman.
I don't know what she is. I know it's not possible for her to be human, but she's appearing to me for a reason, and I'm going to figure out what it is.
No.
I'm going to find her.
I'll go with you.
No.
A well-armed hunter was nearly killed today. It would be foolish to go into the jungle alone.
I have to. She's chosen to communicate with me. I don't know why. But I don't think she'd reveal herself if anyone else was around.
Is that your only reason for going by yourself?
What?
With respect, Captain, I wonder if you would be so determined to find this apparition if it were a scantily clad man.
All right, everybody, thank you very much for listening. And thank you for supporting the show. If you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/thepenskyfile. It's the best way to do so. A couple $1 a month. It gets you extra stuff, extra podcasts. There's behind the scenes stuff. There's all this sort of Discord access. You get a special Discord room that you can talk. And special thanks, as always, go to Alec DeWolf, Andrew Cherlog, Ben Douglas, Bradley Killens, Captain Brazen, Cardinal Doomsday, Chris Tinsley, Christian Michaels, Christian Pouch, Darth Moss, David Beardmore, David K, Dwayne Hackett, Eric Johnson, Eric Santuan, HH28, Jacob123, Jai Keys Gamer, Joint Mango, Jordan Cooper, Kevin Lowry, Kevin Reyes, Kyle Barrett, Mad Courier 6, Matt Cutler, Matt Houston, Matt Ross, Mike Burnett, Mike Harris, Nathan Elliott, Neil Brennan, Nick Sergi, Russell Elliott, Samuel Custer, Grim Santos, Sean, Stephen Minton, Tark Latif, Tom Housen, Vault 13 Hero. You guys are great. Thank you for supporting the show.
Your support helps us show or convince our families that we are not just screaming into a void.
It's true.
So we appreciate it.
To bring it full circle, to tie into our twice annual sex session, I print out the Patreon receipts for Amy, and that really gets her going.
Well, my girlfriend has been working from. She's just recently gone back to work, but she still works a lot from home. Mm-hmm. And she moves from this room when we have to podcast because I can show her how much that is actually generating money.
You built an extension. We got all this money. I'm going to build an extension on the condo. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, now, I'm paying it in installments.
Yeah,
it'll be paid off in about 40 years, I think.
Extremely high interest rate.
Long after we've sold the place.
Guys, thank you very much. It's very kind of you to support the show. Patreon.com/thepenskyfile. And as always, you can leave your thoughts about upcoming episodes. That work all right? Sorry, the computer a little jittery for a second there. All right, so you leave your thoughts about upcoming episodes, and then we read them on the podcast. So let's get through this. Matt Ross says, interesting Rogue Planet. Interesting concept that is all the joy wrung out of it. It's so darkly lit and ponderous. Archer's mindset reminds me of Flounder from Animal House. You guys hunting or something? Geez, must you stick your face into everything? I guess it's an anti-hunting message, but it's so damn heavy in the darkness, and it's beyond boring and slow and lost. How is the planet without a sun warm? How is there plant and animal life without light? Don't ask questions. Wait a sec. A dream person doesn't address you by name? Come on, who wrote it? A planet of shapeshifters? You mean like Odo? Guess that report wasn't cross-referenced in any database, and the alien slug girl slithers off, as we all do, far away from the story.
I did, I do like the appearance again of Archer's "I'm actually gonna fuck you" way of speaking.
Yes.
Where he's like, so, catch anything today? No, none of our sensors are working. Oh, yeah, that's weird. Well, best of luck, guys. Hopefully you get something real good.
Reminiscent of his fusion comment of, how'd you sleep last night?
Yeah.
Good sleep.
How'd you, how you doing today?
I don't, I have no problem with writing that kind of scene like that. I think that Bakula doesn't have the intensity or anger necessary to pull off the flip when that character is like, oh, fuck you. Yeah, how did you sleep last night? He's too nice, I think is Archer's problem, really. Bakula just doesn't seem like he's able to play a completely... I was actually thinking about doing a thought experiment of recasting the Star Trek captains, and if you cast the actors in the Archer role, I think we might have talked about this. I'm starting to think that Avery Brooks might be the best version of Archer in how he's played, which is that he can pinball from cordial to angry very well, and I think that Archer is kind of written as that kind of a character.
Yeah, I would agree. That would be a good choice.
What's wrong with my reading? A latte librarian says, Rogue Planet, the beautiful woman from Archer's childhood dreams telling him to never stop seeking what seems unobtainable, puts this episode in manic pixie dream girl territory for me. 2 sexy slugs out of 5.
I was hoping that he was going to kiss her and they were going to do that thing where they cut to a different angle and he's just tonguing the slug monster.
He's got that slug goo just all over his face.
Yeah.
Stephen Minton, Rogue Planet. The problem is obvious. The episode presents the viewer with a mystery that has no business whatsoever being a mystery. When Archer encounters the woman for the first time, why do the Escas not simply tell him then and there that the woman is the prey they came to hunt? You might think that they don't because the Esca are worried that the crew of the Enterprise will object to the killing of such a creature, but later on they're more than happy to divulge that information and do not even seem to entertain the notion that their hunt might be objected to. About the only thing I liked was the scene with T'Pol in Archer's tent. It shows how far Archer has come from wanting to toss her out of an airlock to seeing her as a trusted senior officer whose opinion is important to him. But one scene does not make up for the shoddy script, and therefore this one only deserves a meager 2 nightgowns out of 5.
Yeah, like imagine if they didn't realize they were sentient or something, like until
The hunters.
Yeah, until this thing reached out to Archer and he was like, "Oh shit, these are sentient beings you're hunting."
Yeah. They have feelings, man. Yeah, there's conflict there that they don't go into. It's really interesting. Captain Brazen says the exchange between T'Pol and Archer is nice as it shows the value he has for her as an officer at this point. That being said, what happened here? I found this episode to be especially helpful in redefining the word dumb. Please note that in the updated Webster's Dictionary, the definition of the word dumb includes 2 new examples. 1, Captain Jonathan Archer, and 2, the year 2020. You can also find Archer under the phrase fucking dumb as well. Why is Archer so determined to find this maiden? Has he been blueballing it since the space dock? Why don't they masturbate in 20... Well, I'm not the only person who's been thinking about this, apparently. Don't they masturbate in 22nd century? You can check off Man's Fantasy Woman Fulfillment Dream Quest episode off your list of writers, and I'll hit skip on rewatch. 1 Manic Pixie Dream Slugs out of 5. The weird thing is she's in her negligee. She's in negligee. Like, this is clearly a sexual fantasy that Archer had as a young man.
Well, I mean, it's based off of that poem, so it's whatever he created in his mind from that poem. But also, it worked, right?
Her plot worked, you mean?
Yeah.
It did.
So
but I think she could have just said, "Please help me, Jonathan Archer. I'm a sentient creature that's being hunted." And would have gone, "That's terrible. I'll help you."
Yeah, I don't know. Well, she chose the form of his destructor, and it happened to be a sexy lady. So
yeah, it's just strange. Poindexter G says that's a snore noise that I couldn't do very well. I started off well and fell apart. This thing barely kept my attention. It's a complete not a waste of time. The only interesting things are the rogue planet with an ecosystem and the lady being a person Archer imagined as a child. Nothing else good happens here. Vol 13 Hero, this episode goes, interesting setting. Maybe this will have a good, heavy story to blah at Warp 5. And not just not interesting to me at all. And the reveal of who the woman is that Archer keeps seeing is very underwhelming. The writers even go for the old, what should we name this alien creature? I don't know. Pick an animal and add fire as a prefix. Firewolves? Genius. 1 fire platypus out of 5. The firewolves. They do go hunting the firewolves. Darth Mosk says, wait, is New Zealand actually rainforest, or is this a global warming in the future thing? I always assumed it was all Middle Earth. Not sure I understand the Eagle Scout badge dick measuring contest. Are the boar worms the same as those in Wrath of Khan? We didn't really talk about Reed. This is a good episode for Reed, too. Like, if you played Reed as more of a headstrong security officer who was wanting to kill things, this episode might have something for him, but bizarrely, he's like, hey, I'll go hunting. I'm just not going to shoot anything. What the fuck is the point of hunting if you're not going to shoot anything?
And also, it is kind of weird that Archer is the focus of this, because when they get down, I don't know, maybe it's not, but it's weird to me that when they get there, Archer is already kind of uneasy about what these guys are doing.
Yeah.
And so he's just proven right by this race that proves to be sentient, which, I mean, sure, whatever, but it would be more interesting if Reed was like, hell yeah, I'm an Eagle Scout, I love hunting, let's go hunting, and then Reed gets confronted with, I don't know, a pineapple with boobs, I guess. And this sexy talking pineapple tells him that they're a sentient species, so he has to then rethink his approach to things.
We're vegetarians, Reed. We like to hunt all varieties of pineapple. Nice pluck. Let's see here. We read Darth Musk, right? Yes, we did. I didn't click the button. Benjamin Espinosa says, if this was an episode tied to the changelings of DS9, I could get behind it. We know the founders sent out changelings across the galaxy. Imagine if the shapeshifters was actually lost from DS9's Chimera. That would have been a great tie-in. Instead, this is a anti-hunting episode with no real purpose. The allegory to modern-day safaris made sense, but unless you're a member of PETA, not very moving. The hunted aliens being telepathic and able to change their shape seems way too advanced for being outsmarted by pursuers with guns. 2 bad childhood poems out of 5. Neil Brennan says Rogue Planet, meh. Cal Barrett says Rogue Planet. Did Archer learn anything by the end of the episode? It's made clear that he's helping the slug because it looks like an attractive woman, but by the end of the episode, does this develop into a classic Starfleet mindset of protecting all life? Or is he just hoping to bang the slug lady? It's certainly not an anti-hunting message because Archer is still fine with them hunting boar at the end. Much like the characters, the episode stumbles around in the dark for 45 minutes, occasionally brushing up against something interesting, mainly about how these 22nd century humans are different from our usual Trek characters, such as Malcolm going hunting, but it never actually feels like it's making a point or that anything it's doing is intentional. After a decent opening of a few minutes, I spend the rest daydreaming about the Predator alien showing up and killing everybody one by one. 2 out of 5. That's it. Thank you, patrons, for all your comments about Rogue Planets. So you started off kind of strong on this one, Clay. I don't know where your rating is going to end up on it. I'm super conflicted about this one because I think that it's in some ways it's maybe the worst episode that they've done so far, but at the same time, it's dressed up nicer than a lot of the other episodes that are bad or skew bad are. So it's a question of how much you think the setup is going to cancel out the problems with the narrative, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
And I don't know. The show is very good. Maybe this is a skill. The show is very good at stringing you along with a plot that doesn't go anywhere, but you don't feel 100% let down by the time that it's over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Yes. Yeah.
So what do you, I'm gonna give it a 2. I think it's a weak 2. It's still not terrible. Like nothing here is catastrophic, but I think it's a really bad 2.
Yeah, I'm probably going to give it a high 2.
Okay.
Just because, I think I like the concept. I think this was an instance of the concept and the potential being enough to kind of lift me through it. But then as soon as I start thinking about it, I'm like, it's all kind of smoke and mirrors in this one.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of potential there that is unfortunately left on the table.
It holds your attention because it's only in retrospect that you notice it, because the reveal is all in the last 5 to 10 minutes. So it's not like you spend the entire episode going like, what the hell's going on? It's not so poorly set up that you're annoyed from the start of it. It's only annoying when you get to the end of it and you're like, why did that happen?
Yeah, like until it's all like hand of the writer stuff towards the end. Because as far as the setup and the action, up until you find out what the reveal is, there's no reason to think that everything they've done to that point doesn't feel bad. It doesn't feel like poor writing because it's fine until you get to the reveal and you go, wait a minute, why didn't they do that? It's another very well executed workmanlike episode that just doesn't come together the way it could have.
Yeah. That's it for Rogue Planet. Thank you guys very much for listening. We'll be back next with Acquisition. And I think that's pretty much it.
Is that a Ferengi episode?
It is a Ferengi episode.
Is it really?
It is.
No shit.
Yep. So, but remember, Clay, they haven't met the Ferengi until TNG. So.
Oh, I see.
There's a whole setup. Let's see here. That's pretty much it.
I noticed. Sorry. I just remembered. I noticed they did the Discovery let's spin the camera around the table while everybody talks shot in this one, where they were talking when they were on the Enterprise talking about getting the suppressive chemical thing down.
It's a good callback by Discovery to do that. Trex Bertice's essay on Picard season 1 came out today, I think, or it came out the day that we're recording this. He talks about the camera movement there. A good video, I think. He It's largely similar to all the points that we made, but I think it's worth watching. He gets more into some like strong examples of when you can see things, just because we can't do that really on the podcast. We can't pull up the video. We can't Joe Rogan it and have Jamie pull something up for us. That's it. Patreon.com/The Penske File if you want to support the show. Otherwise, did you see that meme where someone put the Ducat one?
Yeah. Did we already talk about that?
We did. We talked about it. Oh, okay. Was it?
It's really funny.
When did we talk about it? We might have talked about it.
Probably on the last episode, yeah.
It's very, if people missed it, it's Gul Dukat superimposed on the Rogan set, complaining about the fact that 3 million Bajorans killed over a 50-year occupation is not really that outrageous of a murder rate. So it's pretty fitting. And a very good Dukat counter-argument, I think, that he could have made.
Yes.
Thanks, guys, very much. Patreon.com/The Penske File. Support the show there. Otherwise, thepenskyfile.com/links is where everything can be found. Radio Stars is back. We did those episodes. They'll keep coming. That's on YouTube. There's no more MP3 for it. And then, Clay, do you have anything you want to say before we go?
Badass is back. We just had our first episode of season 3 where we talk about Shadow of the Bat, which is the first appearance of Batgirl. And I believe tomorrow is Rotten Horror Picture Show coverage of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It'll be already out because this is going out Thursday. We have a little bit of time here.
God, what? I feel like I'm living in a temporal Cold War here.
I know. It's that Mr. Show pre-taped Colin Joe sketch. Yeah. If you wanted to talk about Rogue Planet, Clay, we should have talked about it last week when we were talking about acquisition.
Yeah. Well. So Texas Chainsaw Massacre is out from Rotten Horror Picture Show. And and the following week, we're on an alternating schedule with Rotten Horror Picture Show and Badass. So the next Badass will be next week.
Both of those still have MP3 feeds, or you can watch it on YouTube. So whatever you'd prefer to do. Thank you very much for listening. We'll be back with Acquisition, which is the next episode, and the Ferengi return, or are introduced, I suppose, semi-introduced. That's it. Thanks very much for listening.
Technically, they met the Ferengi in 1945 or 1950.
You actually remembered that. That was going to be the trivia that I was going to ask about DS9 with the Little Green Men episode. I assume you're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. Where they go to Roswell.
How could I forget so many cigarettes?
It's good because Braga was going off on a tear. I was just reading interviews about him, but he has a good term for continuity pornographers, people who are just like very invested in the continuity. And he says, listen, they already met the Ferengi in 1945, so you can't tell me that anything we're doing here is off the wall. It's good defense. I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
If you're going to get mad at Enterprise, you have to get mad at DS9. So no one wants to do that. Guys, thank you very much for listening. We'll see you next time.